Sergeant Major Dietrich Holt had stood beside more graduation stages than he could count, and he had never once seen the day go sideways before the first name was called. That record ended the morning. A young woman in a gray fleece and worn jeans tried to take her seat in the third row of the family section at Fort Carver's main ceremony hall. She was small, dark-haired, early 30s at most, carrying a brown paper bag that smelled faintly of coffee. She moved the way people move when they are used to keeping quiet in unfamiliar rooms. Steady, unhurried, leaving space. She found a folding chair in the third row, set her bag beneath it, and sat. That was when Staff Sergeant Grover Tan spotted her. Tan was one of the graduating class's 3 senior drill sergeants. A wide-chested man who ran the room on ceremony days like a conductor, runs an orchestra. Everything in its place. Everyone where they were told. He crossed the floor in 12 strides, planted himself in the rose aisle, and looked down at her. "Ma'am." His voice carried just enough to reach the rows behind her. Families with unit connections are in the side bleachers. Row 3 is reserved for VIP and credentialed observers. She looked up. Expression did not change. "I have a son in the graduating class," she said. "Then you'll be comfortable in the bleachers, ma'am." He gestured toward the left wing. "This section is for command staff and invited guests only." She studied him for a moment, the kind of look Holt noticed from 20 feet away, that measured without judging, or cataloged without commenting. Then she picked up her paper bag, nodded once, and walked to the bleachers. Tan straightened his cover and moved on. Holt watched her find a seat in the 4th row of the bleachers, center section. And he told himself he was done thinking about it. He had 40 things to track before the first company marched in, and a woman's seating arrangement was not among them. But something in the way she had looked at Tan stayed with him. Not anger, not embarrassment, not the flush of someone who had been caught somewhere she didn't belong. Just a calm, patient wait, the way a person waits for something they know is coming. He filed it away and moved on. The ceremony opened on time. 240 soldiers from the advanced individual training cycle marched into the hall in 4 companies, dress uniforms pressed, boots polished, and filled the floor in lines that would have satisfied any inspector. The hall seated their families behind them in the far rows, and the bleachers held the base staff, the observers, and the handful of waiting family members who had arrived without assignments. The opening remarks ran 20 minutes. The base commander, Colonel Warren Kessler, stood at the podium with the practiced steadiness of a man who had given this address 60-odd times and still meant every word. Then he set down his prepared remarks. Holt noticed it first. The slight shuffle of papers. Pause that was a beat longer than usual, and he straightened. "Before we begin the presentation of graduation certificates," Colonel Kessler said, "I have been asked to make an announcement that was not on today's program. Request came from 3rd Army Special Operations Command this morning. I have accepted it." The hall shifted. 240 soldiers sat straighter without being told. "It has come to the command's attention that a recipient of the Army Commendation, Medal with Valor, the Bronze Star, and the Silver Star is present in this building today. She is here not in any official capacity. She is here as a mother." A sound moved through the room, not a murmur, more the soft hiss of 240 men letting out a slow breath. Turned. His eyes swept the VIP row, empty. The command staff beside him, blank faces checking each other. He looked at the bleachers. The woman in the gray fleece had gone very still. "Captain Renata Voss," Colonel Kessler said, "served 3 overseas deployments with a Joint Special Operations Detachment whose full designation remains classified. She was decorated for actions in 2 theaters. She holds the Joint Special Operations Instructor Badge, the youngest woman to earn it, and she completed her last operational rotation 14 months ago. She has since served as a senior combat instructor at a facility I am not authorized to name." Nobody in the room was looking at the podium anymore. "Captain Voss," the colonel said, "you are asked to come forward." She stood. She moved down from the bleachers with the same unhurried, certain step. No performance in it, no drama, just the movement of a woman who knew exactly how far the floor was from every footfall. She crossed the open space between the bleachers and the stage, and came to a stop before the podium. The colonel stepped around it. He did not extend a hand. He came to attention, pressed his heels together, and raised a clean salute. Then, from behind the podium, his aide read the citation aloud. Holt had heard citations before. He had heard them for men who had held ridges, for men who had pulled teammates from fires, for men whose names were on buildings at this base. He had never heard one that moved through a room the way this one did. Quietly, precisely, without theater, one line following the next, each one a weight set down on the floor between them. The detachment cut off in a mountain pass. Communications out. The team sergeant down. 8 men pinned. 3 enemy positions closing from the northern approach. Captain Voss moving to the forward berm alone, eliminating the northern threat at a range that the after-action report listed, but that the aide, per protocol, did not read aloud. Turning to the team. Holding the secondary position until extraction. Completing the mission debrief before accepting treatment for a shrapnel wound to the left forearm that she had not reported until every other man was accounted for. The aide stopped reading. 240 graduating soldiers rose to their feet without an order. The sound of their boots on the gymnasium floor was one sound, sudden and clean as a rifle's bolt going home. They snapped to attention. 240 hands came up in a single salute, held steady, and did not drop. Holt's eyes moved to Staff Sergeant Tan, standing at the edge of the first company. Tan's face had gone the color of old chalk. His right arm came up. He held the salute with the rest of them. The silence lasted 7 seconds. Holt counted, without thinking about it. Then the colonel returned her salute, stepped back, and the hall let itself breathe again. Captain Voss turned to face the floor. Sun was in the second company, 3rd row, and Holt found him only because the young soldier was the one whose eyes were unmistakably full and jaw was set unmistakably hard. The way young men set their jaws when they are determined not to let a ceremony see them come apart. She looked at him once, and what moved across her face was so brief and so private that Holt felt he had seen something he had no right to. He looked away. He had been in this army for 26 years. He had met generals who arrived in motorcades and sergeants who won silver stars and said nothing about it for the rest of their lives. He thought he had a clean sense of which kind of soldier left a mark on a room and which kind left a mark on the institution. He had sorted that woman into the bleachers the same as Tan had. Not with contempt, he told himself, just with habit, just with the 1,000 small assumptions that stack up in 26 years until they feel like knowledge. He was revising that now. After the ceremony ended, the families moved in from the sides, and the floor filled with the noise of reunions, handshakes and embraces, and the particular sound of people saying each other's names. Holt watched Captain Voss find her son near the second company's marker. The young soldier stood at a modified parade rest until she reached him, and then she put her hand on the back of his neck the way mothers have done, since there were mothers and soldiers both, and the parade rest evaporated, and he was just a young man hugging his mother in a gymnasium. Holt reached up and removed his cover. He held it at his side and stood in the middle of the emptying hall for a long moment, thinking about the gap between what a room sees and what a room knows, and how certain he had been, and how completely he had been wrong. He thought, 6 years, and that is still a lesson. He turned and walked toward the exit, cover still in hand, the way a man walks out of a room where something honest has just happened.